Hey guys, it's Loveless and it's time for another video. Today we're exploring astrology, looking at the darker side of life. Now, these are not natal charts. These are charts made based on when I was thinking about a subject. Let's see what we find. A fateful helicopter ride that would rip families apart and stun the world. A gorgeous widow seeking answers and financial retribution. What does the Eye of Loveless say? Kobe Bryant's widow is being asked to undergo a psychiatric evaluation by force if necessary. LA County attorneys want her and others suing them to prove she's going through the emotional anguish and distress she claims in her lawsuit. Wow. After what she's been through, losing a husband and daughter so tragically, I didn't think she'd have trouble in any lawsuit. I made this chart when I saw a news article pop up about her and pondered. Without further ado, let's get into it. Taurus is rising, which makes her Venus sitting in the 7th house, the house of marriage. Venus doesn't lie far from the south node, the dragon's tail, the marker of potential ruin. At least, the worst is behind her. Venus, Vanessa's planet, is in Sagittarius. Sagittarius rules over the house of death in this chart. What does this mean? She's consumed with death right now, and indeed in great emotional anguish. Of course she is. The house of death ruler, Jupiter, is in touch with Venus, and I think this is just an emphasis on how distraught she really is. Uranus retrograde sits prominently at the ascendant, perhaps an indicator of the deep, sudden disruption to her life. Lastly, let's look at the moon in the 12th house. This is a sad, depressing place for the moon. It's opposing the sun, who represents her children. In other words, a deep, depressing anguish regarding a separation between her and a child. Aries is here as well, showing great anger. I wonder if the LA County will take my reading as proof.
That's not proof. It's still debatable, but it's a good piece of evidence.
On a serious note though, the moon can also be showing the tough situation with her own mother, as she recently settled a bitter lawsuit with her. I really made this chart to see what lied ahead for Vanessa, but the stars revealed so much more concerning Kobe. It's as if his presence is still strong on Earth. This is one of my most uncanniest readings yet. I suppose it makes sense because this chart and situation only exists because he passed away. Kobe is in his 12th house, which is spirituality, not the happy kind of yoga type, but the kind obtained from hard experiences. Mars, Kobe, is joined to the royal star Spica, associated with fame and fortune. This must speak, of course, of Kobe's eminence. Notice that Mars is close, joined to another planet. That's the sun, which I mentioned is Vanessa's children. Knowing what transpired, we can see that Gianna, her daughter, is the sun, here with Kobe, Mars. The theme widowhood came up a lot, and so I had to mention it. The Arabic part of widowhood is joined to the midheaven. The midheaven represents her public status and success in her lawsuit. It's also her judge. Mercury, which rules Kobe's house of death, is joined to the fixed star Vindi Mayatrix. It is the star of widowhood. I mentioned this star in my reading for Mama June, who recently separated from her longtime partner. And remember the planet Uranus, which is in the 1st house. It's joined to the Arabic part, marriage of women, perhaps describing, sadly, a sudden end to her marriage. How is death written in the stars? Perhaps in the following ways. I was originally going to focus on the lawsuit, of course, but I feel like I've learned a lot looking into this aspect of the chart. Pluto is another planet that represents Kobe here. Pluto is potentially extreme and destructive energy. It is joined to the Arabic part, end of things. As a note, Pluto is also joined to the parts, heavy place, and soul. If we check out Pluto some more, we see that Pluto is in Kobe's 3rd house. This house is associated with local travels, like traveling around your city. Mars, Kobe, is also joined to the star for Raymond. Because Mars is in Libra, we can take this meaning to the air instead of the sea. Don't fret if you see some of these things in personal readings, however. The more indicators of the same thing, it seems in my experience, that it is then the more literal meaning. Look at how many indicators there were in this chart, and there are still more in the aspects. So obviously Vanessa must have already inherited money from Kobe by virtue of being his wife. The planet that represents her money is Mercury, which I mentioned before represents Kobe's passing. This isn't unique, it would be this way in any chart of a marriage. Let's look at something else. Another sign that wealth comes from him, the part of fortune which represents Vanessa's wealth in general, is in Kobe's sign Scorpio. It's looking good for Vanessa concerning victory. For one, as Venus, she's the strongest planet in the chart. This means she is a force to be reckoned with and has a lot of power in the situation. Venus is strong in the 7th house. I think this means by virtue of being Kobe Bryant's wife, it is a great advantage in the lawsuit. It is through him that she is empowered by having access to his resources. Let's take a look at Jupiter, which rules money in general, but also in this chart, money associated with Kobe. It's moving into the 11th house here. What does that mean? It could be a sign of a windfall coming her way, perhaps, by way of a judge. It's also joined to the star Nashira. Ooh, that's a pretty name. Good tidings, that's great. Redemption and turning evil into good. Could this also be a reference to the foundation for children that Vanessa started in Kobe and Gianna's honor? Let's look at the judge who decides the victory. Saturn is the judge here, and they are strong in Aquarius, probably an older gentleman and a very good and fair judge. So it's still early stages here, but from what I'm seeing about Saturn, the judge looks very favorable towards Vanessa acquiring money. Better yet, we have Saturn joined to the Arabic part of victory. Could these be good omens of a win for her? She has won a recent battle already. Well, that's good news. I did say the judge was most likely an older man, as Saturn oft represents. I'd wager a judge appointed in 1988 is pretty senior in 2021. So I made this chart on October 19th, and her original win was about October 26th. Are there more wins in store? Vanessa hasn't won the lawsuit yet, but it looks very plausible that she'll continue to be successful financially. I'll be keeping an eye on this, and I may make an update. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.